Welcome to The Modern Taoist with Kit Man. Ancient wisdom, modern life, and the way. Visit us online at taoananda.com or find us on all the socials. Now, The Modern Taoist.
Well, hello and welcome to another edition of The Modern Taoist. My name is Kit Man, and I thank you so much for joining, and thanks for all the great comments. You guys have been so nice the last couple of weeks with just the growth that we're having here and the comments you guys are leaving, especially on like places like that I don't expect, like Podchaser. I didn't even know what that was. Suddenly I've got people telling me that, hey, your podcast is ranked in the top whatever on Podchaser. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Let's go look at that. So thank you for everybody for being out there and doing all the stuff and helping and passing it along. And to that point today, today's episode is coming because of a question that I got, and I was going to answer it this happens every now and then. And I was going to answer it in one of our little Ask Me Anything episodes, which, by the way, at the end of the show today, I'll tell you what we're going to be doing with the Ask Me Anything. Okay? Don't let me forget. But we got a question. And it was from a young lady who said that she had been a practicing Buddhist for a long time when she was in her teens and 20s. And then she got married in her 30s, and she kind of didn't reject Buddhism, but really just left Buddhism. And her husband was more of Western thought. I believe she said he was Catholic. And so she never really got back. And she said she recently started reading about and understanding about Taoism and how that might have been really the path she had been on anyway when she was calling it Buddhism. And that helped. That happens sometimes. And one of these days we'll do an episode about the difference between Taoism and Buddhism. And I think most of you will already know, but one of the things we like to do here is educate, and a lot of people don't know the difference. And she said that she had wanted to, how she put it, get back into practice. She's divorced now. She's living her life the way she chooses, and she wanted to get back into practice, as she put it. But she said she felt embarrassed claiming to be a Taoist when she had left and gone off the rails. And I think that's a normal thing. And at first I thought, well, yeah, I mean, I have left a couple of different times. I never completely left, but there were times where my practice was, have a stretch of a few years where I wasn't as, I don't know what the word is, serious about it, maybe. I don't even know that that's the word. But the Tao is, it's not about what you're doing right or wrong. It is what it is, right? It just is. But then I started thinking about maybe this is a question that could be an entire episode, because it doesn't just apply to Taoism. It doesn't just apply to getting back into a spiritual thought process or a philosophical thought process, however you view Taoism as either a philosophy or a spiritual path. It can apply to anything. And it applies to me right now because I am trying desperately. There is no try. I am trying desperately to reignite my love for strength training. And, I feel a bit like a fraud when I go back into the gym. And it's a strange thing we do as people. We walk away from something meaningful, and then the urge to come back hits us. We freeze. And it doesn't matter what it is. Taoist practice, meditation, fitness, writing, faith, even relationships. The moment we think about returning, we get this guilt monster whispering in our ear. You left, you quit, you're a fraud if you come back. What's the point? You'd gotten so far and you blew it. What's the point? And we see it in everyday life all the time. You blew it, buddy. Give up. And that absence, we feel like we're disqualified, like we've broken some kind of unwritten rule. But let me tell you, you are the only one keeping that score. Taoism isn't sending out letters of disappointment, okay? The universe isn't sighing at your lack of discipline. The truth is, life pulls us in different ways. Sometimes they're big disruptions. It can be caused by grief or loss or trauma or illness or a new relationship or being pulled in another direction by someone else's influence. Sometimes it's little distractions like work deadlines or new hobbies. Or sometimes it's just being plain forgetful. And then one day becomes a week, and a week becomes a month, and before you know it, the thing that you had once thought was so important now feels like a distant memory. And then comes the shame, right? The thought that returning makes you a hypocrite. The fear that other people are going to notice that you were gone, or worse, that the practice itself won't welcome you back. And that's when our mind plays its cruelest trick. And that is convincing you that absence means exile. But remember, the Tao doesn't exile. The path doesn't care if you've been gone for a while. If you step back into the water, it's still there. You go to the river, it doesn't care that you went someplace else. The river's still there. You can step out, dry off, wander around, go in the woods, turn around and look, there's the river, still there. Doesn't hold a grudge against you for going and checking out the desert. It flows, and then if you step back in, it's going to carry you along again. Right? And leaving the path, let's be honest, really, okay? Seriously, think about this. Leaving the path is easy. It's really easy. One missed practice, one skipped day, and suddenly you're 2 months deep into Netflix binges and holiday leftovers and telling yourself, oh boy, this is our favorite sentence. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you everybody's favorite sentence. I'll start again on Monday. I've been there more than once. When I first started Qigong, it was as a rehab for an injury. And then I got into it and it became more like an exercise, and I treated it like a gym membership. And I was fired up and committed in daily practice. And then life got busy, or I convinced myself I didn't have time, and before I knew it, I was 2 or 3 weeks out, and then after that, it was 6 months out. And once you hit that gap, your brain pulls this dirty trick that says, you've blown it. You might as well just not even go back. What's the point? But this happens to everything, right? It's not just about commitments you're making internally. It can mean journaling or hobbies. When I was younger, I kept this huge baseball card collection, year after year, every player, organizing, keeping track. And then one summer I didn't do it, and then I never did it again. And somehow I felt like I had failed the Topps Trading Company, right? The same pattern shows up, though, in bigger and more personal areas. Sometimes we drift away from faith or philosophy because life pulls us elsewhere, like this woman that had emailed. And maybe you get burned out. Maybe you're angry at your teacher, right? That happens. And maybe you just get busy raising kids or grinding out a career, and then suddenly years have gone by, and you feel the pull to return. And unfortunately, that pull is not joyous. It comes with shame. Shame for leaving, shame for betraying the practice, shame for betraying yourself. Thanksgiving dinner is a perfect example of how family can then make this worse. Let's say you miss a couple of years, or 4 or 5 years, and you don't go to family dinner. And when you finally show up again, you get the, oh, look who decided to join us treatment. Right? You heard that your whole life on stuff. And so that sarcasm, that little jab stuck in your head. And it makes you think that every path is like that. Like other people are keeping a ledger of your failures. But Taoism doesn't keep ledgers. The Tao doesn't mark attendance. It doesn't take attendance. It doesn't say, are you here today? That idea comes from us, from ego. Ego is a scoreboard. It loves to say, you missed, you failed, you're out. Right? It's funny because sometimes when I think about people returning to a practice, I realize they feel like they're sneaking into the classroom late, hoping that the teacher doesn't notice. Oh, look who decided to show up today for meditation. Oh boy, where have you been? Right? But that's not how it works. Right? Stepping away happens. Not just in practices and not just in going to the gym and not just in your diet, but in your career and in friendships. Sometimes we walk away on purpose. Sometimes we drift away. Sometimes we storm off angry. Because you know why? Because life doesn't move in a straight line. And pretending that it does only makes you feel worse when you veer off of that line. Because that line's invented in your head. It's ego getting mad at itself. You haven't made a mistake. You're not error. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not a fraud. You're a human being. And leaving the path doesn't disqualify you from returning to it. In fact, leaving might even make the return a little richer. I am proof of that. Because now you understand what it feels like to miss it. Right? Not with a judgment, not with shame. Because if you can step away, you can step back. Right? It's not like going back to school where we got dropped off. We have this picture in our head of Taoism standing at the door with a red pen. But Taoism is more like the sky. Constant, vast, always there. We're in the clouds. Sometimes we float across. Sometimes we drift away and disappear beyond the horizon. Sometimes we scatter, thin and barely visible. But the sky doesn't scold the clouds. It doesn't even notice. So that's the Taoist perspective on returning. Because you're not being judged. What makes the return feel heavy is ourselves, right? Once you quit, you'll quit again. Think about the seasons. Nobody shames autumn for not being spring. Autumn is what autumn is. Nobody gets mad at the trees for losing their leaves. The trees don't have any guilt when they decide to grow the leaves back. We accept that cycle as natural. But when it comes to ourselves, our practices, our habits, our hobbies, our relationships, our passions, for whatever reason, we demand constant growth, constant consistency. And the moment we waver in any way, we label that as weakness. Now, let me invite you to see it from a Taoist perspective. And that's not weakness. That's rhythm. And that's where I was saying earlier, sometimes the leaving makes the return stronger. When you step back onto the path after a break, regardless of what it is, whether it's philosophy or whether it's fitness or whether it's a career that you left for a while. When you come back after a break, you see it with new eyes. The first time you meditate again, or open the Tao Te Ching after months away, it hits you differently. You notice things you didn't notice before. So that gap that you took, it didn't disqualify you. It prepared you. So if you're standing on a threshold of some kind and feeling guilty about coming back, or feeling guilty because you're listening to this right now and you're like, yeah, I haven't worked out in 6 months and I really need to again. But you're worried, or you're scared, or you think you'll just fail again, you'll just step off again, so what's the point? Remember, that's ego. Or maybe it's people that you know that are in your life that like to keep score. You get rid of that, right? Returning to the path isn't a confession, it's a continuation. It's just a different beat in the rhythm. One of the hardest parts about returning to anything is not the act itself, it's that story we tell ourselves about either what people will think, or in the case of fitness, sometimes it's like, what is the point? Have you ever done a fitness routine? And let's say you do it for 6 or 8 months and you start getting in really much better shape, right? Your muscles feel stronger, your body feels healthier, you've lost some weight, you're feeling super confident. And then for whatever reason, life happens. Usually it's the holidays, right? Now the holidays hit you, you start eating too much divinity, and you have a couple of extra turkey sandwiches, and suddenly you kind of drop downhill, and then Christmas rolls around, and that carries its own stuff, and then here you are on January the 1st, and you're like, I got to get back in shape. And the first thing you think about is, God, I did all that work before and I fell off so easily. Maybe what's the point? Right? Because it's the inner part of you saying that you've done something wrong. Right? I've experienced that. I think we all have. We have this inner dialogue. If you were serious, you never would have stopped. None of that comes from the Tao. None of that comes from the universe. It comes from our ego trying to make us wear a shame mask. And sometimes, unfortunately, it comes from people around us. Family can be experts at guilt. Right? Communities can gossip. You walk back into a circle you once left and someone says, oh, you're into this again. Have you ever had anybody do that? Maybe I have. I've had people say after let's say I play golf, right? And I didn't play for a couple of years because doctor's orders. And if I've got golf clubs in my hands and somebody walks in and goes, oh, you're into golf again. At first it makes me go, oh yeah, I guess maybe I am kind of an idiot. But then I go, wait a minute, hang on. It was just another beat in the rhythm. Taoism gives us a way to stand at a little bit of a distance from all that noise. Not distance like a coldness, but of clarity. And you don't have to absorb those comments, those smirks, those sarcastic remarks. You can hear it and you can let it pass without it defining anything, without it defining your love of what you're returning to, define your motivation. Because Taoism compassion starts with yourself and remembering that you're a human. And drifting and coming back is part of the rhythm of living. It is not a moral failing. You've got to have compassion to yourself. I've had to laugh at myself for making returns more dramatic than they needed to be. Oh my God. I skipped meditation for like 3 months. Surely the Tao has revoked my Taoist teacher membership card. No. Shame doesn't survive very well when you expose it to humor. Another move is to refrain the return. Don't frame it as going back. Frame it as beginning again. When you return to a path, you're not making up for lost time. You're starting over. Fresh starts carry their own kind of cool energy. Taoism doesn't see cycles as failures. It sees them as natural. Day changes to night. And when day comes back, it's not, no, here comes the day again. It's starting a new day. Seasons change. Breathing changes, right? You breathe in, but then you breathe out. That's a rhythm. So don't treat the other rhythms any differently. If you're worried about what other people will think, or if you're stuck in your own shame cycle, just remember, nobody else gets to decide the worth of that return but you. Because Taoism isn't out there running fraud checks. And let me tell you something about people that ask questions like, oh, you're into golf again. That's usually them fighting their own ghosts because they're not into anything. Or they can't understand why meditation means so much to you. Because they don't have anything in their lives that mean that much. So getting shame from other people we can deal with by just, giving some distance and some clarity to putting in a perspective where they're coming from. Shaming ourselves is the big problem. So when that shame bubbles up, pause for a second and ask, who is giving this voice authority? And if that answer is your ego or a stranger on the internet, don't hand them the pen to write your story. The Tao doesn't hand them that power, so why should you? And don't hide or don't hand that power to your inner ego either. Return without shame. It's okay. Walking back onto your path with clear eyes is good. It's a good thing. You're picking up weights again? Don't be ashamed of that. It's a good thing. You're doing something good for yourself. Even if you did a bunch of bad for yourself for the last 8 months, that was in the past. Right now in this moment, you're doing something good for yourself. You haven't meditated in 3 months, but you are now and you feel stupid? It's okay. You're doing something good for yourself. And once you can start realizing that these things, these startovers, these new beginnings are good, they're good things, that whole idea of being a fraud dissolves. Because you're not a fraud for leaving and coming back. You're a human being. That's what we do. We're humans. We have a rhythm. We leave, we come back. We stop, we begin. It's okay. That shame follows us everywhere. Anytime we step away from something, there's shame waiting at the door, arms crossed, ready to sneer at you. Have you ever been in a work environment where somebody gets angry? They're mad about how things are being run. They're frustrated with the culture, or maybe they're just fed up. And they storm out and they make a big scene. And then the next day they're right back at work again. And that person has this look of shame. Right? Because out of necessity, they had to come back. Same job, same desk. But now they have a different energy. Because they're letting that inner person, that inner shame, that ego, tell them that they shouldn't have come back. We all make mistakes. We all do stupid things sometimes. But they came back with their tail between their legs. Because of that weight of their ego, they feel smaller. They feel like they've lost ground. And that's shame at work. That's shame saying you lost, you failed. You should be embarrassed. Ego loves this because it thrives on comparison and judgment. And ego tells us that leaving was a statement. So returning must mean defeat. And that makes the returner feel like a lesser person. When in truth, they probably have gained some perspective on their anger or what made them mad in the first place. In Taoism, leaving and returning are not moral failures and victories. They are movements. You step off the path, you wonder, you step back on. The act of returning isn't lesser. It's part of the rhythm. Like I said earlier, when the tree loses its leaves in the fall, do you stand in the yard and go, what a quitter? The tree couldn't even keep its act together. Stupid tree. No. Because you know the leaves are going to come back in the spring. That doesn't make the tree weak. It makes it alive. And when it's us, when we step away from a job or practice or a relationship, we slap on that label of weakness. So what do you do if you're the one returning and that shame is gnawing on you? First of all, you've got to name it. Call it what it is. Ego dressing things up and calling it failure. That's human being scoreboard thinking. Secondly, remind yourself that what you're doing is a choice. You're not crawling back with your tail between your legs in shame. You're re-entering with new knowledge, even if that knowledge came to you the hard way. You're not less for returning, you're different, right? And different can be stronger. And if you're the one watching someone else return to something that they love, let's put this in real talk for a second. Don't embarrass them. Show some compassion. Drop the smugness. Drop the, oh, look who's back. Oh, you're playing golf again, huh? Oh, you're in the weight room again, huh? Because I got news for you. You've probably been there too. Because we all have. We all drift. Everyone circles back. They don't need to be reminded. They already have their inner voice calling them a failure. They don't need you to help. Right? Humility is not weakness. It's a strength that most of us resist, and returning requires humility. Handling shame and ego comes down to this. Can you see yourself not as lesser for stepping away, but as a human being, for finding the courage and the humility to come back? Because it does take courage. Even the smallest things. You may be saying right now to yourself or to whoever you're listening to this with, what do you don't have to have courage to start playing the guitar again? Oh, yes, you do. You dang right you do. Because of that inner fear of failure. So Taoism isn't going to scold you for leaving, and it's not going to applaud you for staying. It just holds space. It just is. And if you can take that view into your own returns, you'll find that shame has less of a grip. You'll find that ego's scoreboard doesn't matter nearly as much as you thought that it did. And you'll realize that returning isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about flowing back to where you belong without apology, because you owe no one an apology for doing a good thing for yourself. And remember, it's one thing to nod along when I say the Tao doesn't judge, and that shame is ego's scoreboard, and that leaving and returning are part of the rhythm. It's one thing to go, yeah, Kit's right. That's right. Dang, that's right. But it's another thing to live it. So maybe for you, this isn't about returning to Taoism or returning to a fitness program. Maybe it's simply about walking back into a relationship that you stormed out of that you know was a good thing for you. Or reaching out to a friend that you ghosted years ago. Or, like I said, dusting off that guitar that you shoved into a closet because you convinced yourself you missed your window. Not going to be a rock star. No point in playing the guitar. Maybe it's about meditation. Maybe it's about Qigong. Something spiritual that you let slip and now you feel awkward picking it back up. Whatever the case, the feeling is the same. Guilt and fear of judgment, and that nagging little voice that says, people are going to think less of me for what I'm doing. They're going to say, oh, here we go again. They're just going to quit again. So how can Taoism help you? Right? We always try to get to a part in the show where we try to figure out, if you're going through this, how can Taoism help you? First, name it. Name your ego. I'm a fraud for returning? Who's saying that? Who said it? Was it yourself? Because the Tao didn't. Naming it out loud takes its power away. Do you ever watch like exorcism movies? Like horror movies, and there's an exorcist and they always try to get the demon to say its name. Name yourself, demon. Name yourself. Right? You know why they do that? Because the demon naming itself takes its power away. So get your ego to name itself. Think in a retrospective way about who is the one putting the shame on you. And if it's your ego, take its power away. Secondly, like I said earlier, stop calling it going back, because that makes it sound like you failed and are crawling. Instead, call it a new beginning. Beginning again. Starting over. Because beginnings are fresh. They are alive. They are creative. You're not resuming a broken streak. You're starting a new one. Okay? Third, and this may have been the first one, because to me, I think this is the most important. Shrink the drama. Sometimes we inflate the weight of a return so much that it becomes impossible for us to step back in. We tell ourselves that it has to be some grand gesture, but really it doesn't. If you want to meditate again, you don't need to announce it. This isn't an airport. If you want to meditate again, just go sit quietly for 2 minutes. If you want to mend a friendship, just send them a text that says, hey man, I've been thinking about you. If you want to get back into a career that you had abandoned, just slowly start applying for jobs. Just show up. Don't make an announcement. Don't tell everyone you're going to get back into this career. Don't tell everyone you're going to start doing this or doing that. Just do it. Let the action be simple. Just do it. Number 4, rehearse compassion. For yourself and for others. If you wouldn't mock someone else for returning, why would you mock yourself? And if you would mock them, maybe you need to ask yourself why you would do that. Compassion isn't letting yourself off the hook. It's recognizing that leaving and returning is a universal circle. It's human. It's human behavior. It's nature. And finally, 5, let everything be in the present tense. Don't weigh your return down with promises about, I'm going to do this forever. This is my new normal. I'm not giving up this time. You don't have to swear you'll never leave again. The Tao doesn't care, because it's about right now. Are you sitting quietly in your meditation right now? That's all that matters. Not whether you're going to do it again tomorrow, not whether you're going to do it forever. You're here now. And that's enough. Maybe listening to this podcast is your first step back into it. That's enough. You're fine. Because the truth is, most of us are going to return to something important more than once. Life is going to pull us away again. We will drift. We will wander. I will leave my golf clubs in the closet for 6 months. It's okay. Each time, ego will try to turn that return into shame. But if you can see the return as part of a cycle and not disrupt it, then the shame will lose its grip. So think of one thing in your life that you've stepped away from. Something that you secretly miss. Don't overthink it. Just let it come into your mind. Maybe it's a practice. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's even a version of yourself that you had set aside. Maybe it's the way you used to dress that you really liked. Now ask yourself, what would that feel like if I just did it? If I didn't announce that I was going to do it, if I didn't tell everybody about it, if I just went into the closet and picked out that shirt that I used to really like, that I stopped wearing because, I don't know, it was out of style, or somebody once said, where'd you get that shirt? And go put it on again, not with shame, not with an apology, but just with openness. This is me. This is what I do. Taoism says you can. You're not disqualified. The moment you can take that step, you'll realize something powerful. And that is, returning doesn't make you smaller. It makes you alive. It makes you a human being. It makes you perfect within yourself. Because you're giving something, or you're returning to something that you had thought that you had given up. And you're starting over. Always put it in that frame. Starting over. Starting again. It's a brand new day. And if you take nothing else from this conversation that we've had today, let it be this. Oh my gosh, give yourself some grace. Grace doesn't mean excuses. It doesn't mean pretending you didn't leave or that the absence didn't matter. It simply means recognizing that leaving and returning are part of the rhythm of life. You drift, you step away, you circle back. That movement doesn't disqualify you. It doesn't erase your worth. It doesn't delete everything you did before. It just proves that you're alive and you're moving through the seasons like everything else in nature. But the problem is, most of us are terrible at giving ourselves that grace. We're raised on measurements. We're raised on scoreboards, grades in school, performance reviews at work, likes and follows on social media. It seeps in deep. So by the time we reach adulthood, we're constantly tallying our value, tallying up our pros and cons, our pluses and minuses. And when we leave something meaningful, we check that box as a minus. and later we feel the pull to return, we have such a problem putting that back into the plus column. We count the days that we missed, the opportunity that we wasted, the progress that we lost. We tell ourselves these stories of failure. The Tao doesn't work like that. There's not a checkbook or a ledger of accounts saying you were gone too long, you can't come back, you owe me X amount of days. That voice belongs to your ego. Your grace is what silences that voice. So if there's something calling you back, a practice that you've abandoned, a relationship that you miss, a version of yourself that you want to feel again, let yourself return without shame. Don't frame it as groveling or crawling back. Don't load it with promises about I'm never leaving again, I'm going to do this forever. Just take one step with grace. Let it be simple, and let it be now. And when shame tries to pipe up, don't argue with it. Laugh at it. Shame is a heckler in the back row that thinks their opinion matters. Smile and move on. Grace will say you don't need to win this heckler over. You don't need to earn their way. They don't matter. All you have to do is show up. Because the Tao never left. That river is still there. The path never closed. You're not lesser for stepping away and checking out the woods. You're not fraudulent for jumping back into the river. You're just human. So practice some grace this week with yourself and please with others. With anyone else you see stumbling back toward their path. Instead of judging them, offer them some space, maybe even a helping hand. Instead of shame, offer them kindness. And if you're the one returning, accept that grace from someone else fully. And that's going to wrap things up for today. As always, you guys, I thank you so much for listening. I told you at the end of this I would tell you what we're going to do with the Ask Me Anything episodes. After the first of the year, I'm going to try to get through the holidays first. We've got a lot of things going on here personally, and I'm sure you guys do too. You should go listen to the holiday episode, by the way. If you haven't, go back a couple of weeks, or I don't know how long ago it was, but go find the holiday episode and go listen to that, because now is the time. But anyway, my point, let's not digress too much. After the first of the year, the Ask Me Anything episodes are going to be what we are calling, or what everybody apparently calls, mini-sodes. We're going to do each question one episode at a time, and we're going to do it on video, and we're going to have those available on Spotify with video Spotify and on YouTube as well. And it will just be, we'll hit those questions one at a time. So if you have any questions about Taoism, about the history of Taoism, about philosophy of Taoism, about any of it, feel free to hit me up on email. You can contact us through the website, which is daoananda.org. That's DAOANANDA.org or .com. And there's a little form there you can fill out the whole thing. I'm in the middle of writing a book. I'm writing 2 books, actually. One is a fictional fable about Taoism and golf, and the other one is a Taoist manual of sorts. I'll explain that later on next year at some point. But again, I thank you for listening, and I thank you for walking the path with me, however many times you've left and returned. And if this conversation resonated with you in any way, please share it with someone who could use a little bit of grace. Subscribe, leave a review, and connect with everything we're building at daoananda.org, daoananda.org. Until next time, stay steady, stay kind, and remember that grace is never out of reach. The path is always here, waiting for you to return with no judgment. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Modern Taoist with Kip Man. Visit us online at daoananda.com or find us on all the socials. Please like or subscribe on this platform And thanks again.